This is Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.
And we're back. This is episode 8. I'm Zach.
I'm Kris, and this is Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.
Here in Cartoon Reality Studios in Linwood, California.
Linwood, California.
And last time, as usual, I love this because it's a running bit now. We're promising video. It's really recording.
We are recording video again, and we have high hopes that this is going to be the one.
Yeah, but if it's not, just remember it's a running gag.
So
last episode we went through something we just called transcendence.
Yes.
Which was, we just went into the other side. We said, okay, we were talking about freeing the inner self, letting it be expressed, opening it up to imagination, bringing your personal sense of what's yours to express into the world. Mm-hmm. And then we said, when you get to that inner source, it's going to be a massive perspective shift.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a dangerous one, but it's a really necessary one. It to help sort of move our way through the chaos of this world. But I think we owe it to everybody to start going into, okay, what are the upsides? Or more importantly, how to navigate when you find out that this world, this physical world that we're interacting with, is paper thin compared to the ocean of spiritual existence. What to do about it, and how to make both sides of the equation meaningful.
Part of the metaphor I use is, you're in a boat on this spiritual ocean, and you've never been in the ocean before. So we're here to teach you how to jump out of the boat and learn how to swim. We're not trying to let you drown here. We're trying our best to guide you into being able to tread water in a substance that you've never even been in before. Or you might have, had droplets of the water hit you, but you've never submerged yourself into this spiritual ocean. And that's where we need to go. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of spiritual leadership in this world. There's a lot of religious leadership in the world. But our goal is, with our openly admit we struggle. We want that it's sometimes difficult for us to navigate this ocean, and we want to learn from our experiences, pass them along, just as a public service, to be responsible with our teaching, to make this useful to people, to help guide us through the chaos that we're finding ourselves in, to find meaning. Like, we want to make this very deliberately safe, so that when you enter into this ocean on this boat that you're talking about, like, the first thing is, we're going to tell you kind of where you are. The first thing I think to know about where you are is that you've always been there.
Yeah.
But you just didn't know that.
It's where you come from.
It's where you come. So I have this phrase called heaven consciousness. And what that means is that before you're born, you are spiritually in this ocean. Mm-hmm. And this ocean is one where you're at home. And we're going to get into that later. But go along with this. You're at home. You're at peace. You don't do anything wrong there. There's no wrong to be done there. No reason for it. No competition. You're at home.
Yeah.
What are you fighting at home? Your understanding of who you are. Mm-hmm. Your understanding of where everything is. And in that world, there's no deviation from living this peaceful, perfectly orderly life, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I believe that we all enter the world with that world in mind. We come to the world expecting peace, expecting order, expecting justice, expecting home. Mm-hmm. And we get none of those things.
Yes.
We get those in fits and spurts.
Yeah.
We don't get all of those things.
And different people get exposed to a different amount of security and positivity and support from their environment. But this environment naturally does not just hand you those things.
No.
Not at all.
But we stick nonetheless because of what we know. Mm-hmm. We stick with having this heaven consciousness on earth where it doesn't really belong.
Yeah.
So what you end up happening is when I see a person who lashes out because this person is behaving badly towards them and that person is behaving badly towards them, I don't see them as like bad people for, just judging everyone all the time. Mm-hmm. I see them as unacquainted people with this world. Mm-hmm. They don't understand yet in a fully metaphysical way even that this world is fundamentally a workplace. Mm-hmm. It's imperfect. It's not home. It's not just, and it's not peaceful. But we're supposed to make it that way.
Yeah.
That's our effort collectively. But we'll get into that. But the thing is that when you see a lot of people who are just always upset or even lashing out, some people make the decision, since this world is not perfect, since it's not heavenly, I can do whatever I want. Or I have every means I need to defend myself. It doesn't matter what I do. And so when you see that, you're like, that's a bad person. I don't see a bad person doing that. I see a person who doesn't learn or doesn't know where they are.
Yeah. And that seems to be the condition of human beings right now, is most of them are so detached from purpose or responsibility that they allow this world to crush them because they don't understand. Like, once you have the purpose and the responsibility and you feel like, oh, I need to be here to work and make things better, that's why I'm here.
Right,
I'm
and
not
instead of
here,
expecting that it's home.
Yeah, I'm not just here to have an experience of being an animal, Yeah. That's not the driving force behind human minds, except for humans that have not mentally evolved past being an animal. Mm-hmm. But most people are searching and grasping for purpose and meaning and comfort, and all of that is already there. That's where they sourced from.
Yeah.
They sourced from this field of perfection. But here, as people like to say, especially the scientific community and geographical community, is that God doesn't design in straight lines. And if that's the case, then the natural state of this reality that we live in is imperfect, even though it's also kind of perfect.
Yeah.
In its imperfections, it has perfection, and that's why it's such an anomaly.
It's really difficult to grasp that, like, so many things about this world are beautiful, yet so broken. It doesn't seem to, like, it's really hard to absorb that this place is meaningful when it seems so meaningless, or that it's meaningless when it seems so meaningful in a certain sense. Like, there's a lot of an adaptation to our mentality that needs to happen, not because we're unaware, but because we're so, in my opinion, because we're so aware of something else.
Yeah.
And that is, and that's the other world. And so, what's the next thing we put down here?
How to make it useful?
Yeah. So, there is a reason to reach this transcendence, to reach this other world even now. You'd think, well, the way I'm describing it, we don't need more of that.
Yeah.
We need less of that. Mm-hmm. Like, we're on this world, so we should just be aware that everything's imperfect and not, like, judge ourselves so harshly and just, like, let everything go. And that's fine. Like, it's important to sort of let things go and understand that not everything's going perfectly. But then you're just still left in more nothingness. Yeah. You're just left in like a more profound sense of nothingness.
If you just go straight to the nihilistic aspect of, oh yeah, this place isn't perfect and nothing matters, and
you're still at the point of nothing matters.
You
didn't progress anywhere.
Nothing that I do does anything or means anything to anyone other than me. So I can do whatever I want and there's not going to be any consequences in the end because we all just die.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you'll end up in the next sort of evolution. And some people really, that's where they go.
Mm-hmm.
But then the idea is, no, the problem we have is a categorical problem. We take heaven consciousness and bring it to earth.
Mm-hmm.
But what we should really be doing is have heaven consciousness in the perspective of heaven itself.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go to the other side
Mm-hmm.
to have this heaven consciousness be useful to our world. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you go up and see that the other world is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
the other world is our home, it's deeper, it's meaningful, it makes sense, and that this world is not, but we're still sent here, and we're still here to work, and work is meaningful.
Yeah.
You are meaningful. You have responsibility in this world with and you have the grounding of knowing that this is a place that you're working in,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have the expectation that it's perfect and that it's your home.
Yeah.
From that angle, heaven consciousness is really useful because you'll never see this world as meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
You'll always take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be upset that it's not perfect. And you're going to work to make it better.
Yeah.
Heaven consciousness in a transcendent state of mind will bring you to an earth consciousness of meaning and purpose.
Definitely.
But you have to get to that heaven. You have to get there where you feel the perfection.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to look for it in places that don't really have that.
Yeah. If you try to, if you're constantly seeking perfection from the world outside of yourself, you're going to be let down the majority of the time because there's not a lot of things here that are perfect because everything in this reality is like a twisted imitation.
It's time-bound.
Yeah.
The other world is infinite. The
Yeah.
other world is eternal. You get something that brings you some sort of transcendence here
Mm-hmm.
that's not within you. What is it going to do? You have a drug. When the drug goes away, that transcendence goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you might not even transcend completely. You just go halfway, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just weird. You have some sort of sexual encounter,
Mm-hmm.
or you listen to some form of music. I mean, like, I'm just saying sex, drugs, rock and roll. I couldn't
Yeah.
help myself. It's just my go-to. But the point is that we have a lot of options in this world to entertain ourselves, to numb ourselves, to even transcend ourselves. But they're all short-term.
Yes.
And we're always... And the problem was that we're always searching for more. You see these people who are so successful, but they're so sad. They reach the top and realize that they're not fulfilled. And the reason they're not fulfilled isn't because success doesn't give you fulfillment. It gives you a moment of fulfillment.
Yeah.
It gives you a moment of temporary peace and security in this world. But it doesn't give you heaven consciousness in heaven. And they're actually the most depressed and strange people at these like Hollywood parties or whatever. Because they're like, we've reached the top and now we really don't know where to go.
Yeah.
We're done.
It's like we have all the money, we can do whatever we want. We have access to everything, all the drugs, all the parties, we can go anywhere. But do we even really want to be here?
I mean-
like if you haven't found that comfort of like you're comfortable on earth because you're doing something that feels like it's meaningful. If you get yourself to a point where you have so much where just nothing seems meaningful, and the only thing left is finding that meaning.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think all these actors and business leaders are so obsessed with their political causes and charities? Because they've, at some point, they hit a wall or they realize, like, this doesn't mean anything until I work, until I take responsibility. And they're going to be searching and they're going to be lost and they're going to be very hurt until that happens. And so but this is not just a phenomenon of the rich and famous. It's just an example. It's just a point of reference. The important thing is that a lot of the things in this world that we strive for give us a moment of security and peace. But if we realize that that's a useless thing to look for, when we could be getting access to our home, to our real peace, to our real eternity, then we won't be so desperate looking for it here on earth, and instead just work to make this world more like the world we came from.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you stop looking for something that can't actually be found because you found it already, and you're taking that heaven consciousness, you're going to that heavenly place. I mean, you can't build that. You can't build this world and take that responsibility and know that you're important and get that perspective that you're here to build yourself and in this world until you, like, have that moment where you're like, oh, this is what's going on. I'm put here. I'm working. I mean, that's what the Sabbath is.
Yeah.
The Sabbath is literally, we're going to stop working and we're going to encounter God. We're going to encounter heaven consciousness. Because while you're working, you're attached to this world. When you're not working, it doesn't mean relaxing. It means you're not metaphysically attached to the objects of work in this world. So all you have is your spiritual self. You go into that moment of trance. Everyone who participates in these ceremonies or in these days, they feel a little bit of that. But if you're really purposely understanding what's happening, is that we are required religiously, and I would say spiritually that law also applies in a way, to get a sense of heaven consciousness in a spiritually transcendent place. Because where we are now is taking expectations of heaven onto earth. But if we went back to heaven and understood, oh, this is our true home, and this is our workplace, we can make the actual distinction between home and work.
Yeah.
And knowing that we're all responsible and that we're all capable. That is our liberation. Not any... We can't find work in heaven.
Yeah.
And we can't find home here.
Yeah.
Until we build this to be our home. So that's where we are.
And it's there are some basic structures of what we've built here, like the family unit, and community, but a lot of those things are disappearing. You know, like the structures that really give us the attachment to that heaven, to that love, to that security, to the home. You create a home, but then the society is sort of set up specifically to be like, all right, and that's all the home you get. Now go to work and make that paycheck. So it's not that we haven't pulled things into this reality already.
Yeah,
that
start to really build
that are meant to be heaven bound.
Yeah.
But we've also been manipulated in a way that we're not as connected to this knowledge and to this knowing of the physical and the metaphysical and how they interact with each other, that a lot of human beings have just sort of become lost in I call it the game sometimes, because it feels, you know, if you look at it from a certain perspective, you come here, you play the character, and then you go to sleep and you log off for a while, then you log back in and you come and play the character, and then you log off, and you know, like.
Yeah, you know, I think, like, the way I sort of conceive of, like, okay, how do you escape the cycle of logging in, logging off, and that's it? I mean, so let's get to, this is sort of the next point forward. What is the work of this world? You know, it used to be that we would have, like, national goals and national purposes. Like I say, like, oh, coal mining powers America, gives it electricity. Or, like, an army would fight Nazis instead of doing whatever it does now. We used to have structures, family structures, national structures, work structures, that all had an explicit higher purpose. Now, it might not have been the highest purpose, But people were trained to see what they were doing as critical. This is why people describe parenthood as such a profound experience. Because even though it's horribly difficult to parent a child, you can't escape the feeling of responsibility. That's so. This is where I'll go with this. When we come to this world, we're actually seeking work.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the package of what we're going into this world with. We want the responsibility and we want the work, because the work of building a better world is meaningful and gives us a sense of satisfaction. It doesn't necessarily give us the same sense of peace and home, but like, I mean, when you go to work and you feel like you've done a job well done, that's an immensely pleasurable feeling. It's not, I don't mean just nice feeling. It's a deep feeling. And we all want this. And so when we find that we can take responsibility, that we're encouraged to, either through parenthood or through our nation or through our work or any sort of structure that says we're going to take responsibility, we respond to it so much. I mean, it's said that a job is more than a paycheck. It's a sense of dignity. It's your place in the community. We want to. There's a satisfaction in building this world to be a better place.
Yeah.
And to making it a home for everybody. And that everybody, no matter who they are, has this urge to contribute. And all these people in this modern society who are told to put off having a family, who are told that their jobs are essentially gigs and that they don't really mean anything. They're just there to make a paycheck and keep living. Or that you shouldn't feel proud of your community or connected to it. Like, there's a lot of breakdowns of these old and very essential units where people were happy with the responsibility that they got to take. I mean, people go through the military and they'll accept really difficult conditions. They'll accept death to a certain extent and low pay. Why? I mean, it's because they get us. There's a sense that your responsibility to protect other people and to help the nation and to fight evil is so much more important than any comfort that you can get. And we all know this.
It's the fact that you on a personal level are getting more reward, at least in your own mind, in your own heart. You feel more rewarded by what you're doing and the concept behind it than the financial pay.
Exactly.
Like for me, before COVID, I was bartending, which, I work real hard. I get to go home with a stack of money, and it does make you feel good. But at the same time, you're also just kind of like, okay, well, that's it. There's my stack. Cool. What did I do? Who did I change?
What did I do for other people? I mean, it's like, and so I have this metaphor to describe.
Like, I'm providing a service, but at the same time, it's like, what did I really, in that amount of time, I could have got more reward for myself than this stack of money means to me.
I have this interpretation of what the third temple is, the rebuilt temple, which is that it says in the Bible that if you respect your mother and father, you are rewarded with long life. And it says that in the Messianic era, in the future era, when spirituality really comes to this world, that we're going to be living spiritually, meaning eternally, in this world. And so my thought is, well, in the other world, we're the children of God. But the responsibility of children is to honor their parents. And we're building, to me, the third temple is a representation of the home we're building for God, our parent, to dwell with us. And so we all have to build that world together. And that means not just that, and that means building a world that can accept spirituality and mutuality between people. And that's a goal we can all work towards, and gives us a sense of happiness. And the reward for it is an incredibly beautiful one, which is that our parent, God, lives with us. God has brought us into this world, and we're going to bring God into this one. That's the benefit of understanding where we came from and what we're doing here. Because you stop looking I mean, because with this vision of what this third temple is supposed to be, in my opinion, then you don't sweat the things that go wrong as much. You know, you don't think, well, this is, I don't know what I'm worth, or that I'm not important. You understand that you're an integral part and fabric of the most essential and beautiful things in this world. And but you can't feel that. We can't. Here's the thing: we can't teach people just these things for them to believe it. Belief doesn't come from being told what to believe. Belief comes from experiencing this.
Yes.
And the only real experience that we can have is say, okay, that expectation of perfection you have here, of home, and all those sorts of things, drop that and transcend with us. And see where this truly belongs, and then you'll understand what this world is. So we want you to go to the other side, if only to understand how important this world is. We want you to go into the ocean in order to understand how beautiful the sand is. You know what I mean?
The more of us that know how to swim in the ocean, the easier it's going to be to save people when they fall out of the boat. And on that, I think we're going to take a real quick break.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll be right back. Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.
This is Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.
And we're back to our next segment of Episode 8.
Episode 8.
And we talked about the general framework for, okay, what happens when we come to this world? How do we see it? Where do we come from? And that it's important to distinguish between this world, which is a work site, and where we came from, which is our home. But the work site is actually building a new home.
Yes.
But in the process of realizing this, it's really difficult to internalize it.
Yeah.
Just because we're talking about this and saying, well, this is going to benefit you, when you realize you're both important and you're responsible, but you're also supposed to be working together with other people. We're also supposed to not be super upset when we make mistakes, because we'll get chances to fix them. So there's a certain kind of balance that happens with this worldview, but you have to buy into the worldview. And what I do not believe in is convincing someone to believe in God or to believe in anything that I say. The only thing I can ask is you make an honest attempt to feel, to transcend, to meditate, to move into a world where this is real, more real to you.
And I feel like a good way to try to get people on that mindset is understanding that all the ideas and the things that create the society you live in, the function, they're non-physical. It lives in this world of just things that aren't real, but people make it real.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like certain things about language or politics or the way we relate to each other as people that say, okay, well, there's some sort of abstract level of existence that goes on here. And so that should make us curious to want to experience and go into that ocean as a self. But what I want to talk about is, I think we both want to talk about how we came to the point of view where not only have what we described previously is true, but we believe it.
Yeah.
For me, it was realizing that there's a difference to how I felt in this world to when I had a long series of dreams where they were incredibly vivid. And by the way, this vividness is important because the vividness means that something is more real, that like you're really in the ocean.
Yeah.
And in this dream, I was walking around being told where to go in this dungeon. And this was a series of dreams that took a week, maybe a couple of weeks to go through.
So every time you went to sleep, you would go back and
Keep
go
going.
back into that dream.
Yeah, and keep going. And the very last dream was I was finally led out into this room, to this chamber where I was put on my knees, and I was killed. I didn't know why I was being killed, but I was. But that's not where the dream ended. Then what ended up happening is I was looking around for what to do next, and I saw the light, and I went into that light. But that's not the remarkable thing. The remarkable thing was what I felt. What I felt was, if you can imagine, the utmost peace that you've ever felt in your life from anything, and then multiply it by millions. And you can't fake a feeling like that. You can't imagine a feeling like that. It's a stamp of a certain kind of truth. Because how can you replicate peace like that? Especially in a situation so traumatic, seemingly.
Yeah.
And what I was realizing was I was living through this exact process that I had gone through, and really living in it and being there. And that's where I started being able to make the distinction between the total peace and security of that was unimaginable with this world. And to this day, this is what I tell people who are questioning, okay, what is there after this? Where did we come from? And I say, no, it's peace beyond imagination. Now, it's not really possible for everyone to just pick up these dreams and go to that place and really get the message that that world is the home and this world is the work site. But if you can sense through your dreams or through moments of divine expression where you're singing or you're writing or you're speaking, like that we've talked about in previous episodes, where you're feeling a sense of completeness that's not really part of the average experience that you have, and you hold on to it not as an anomaly but a truth, and you understand that you are transitioning from the world of discontinuity to a world of unity in that process, then it's possible to make the intellectual connection between the other world is the home and this world is the worksite. And there are other experiences that drew me to this realization and what it took, but the most important one, the most direct and consequential one, is the one where peace seems to be more powerful in a subconscious or in an other consciousness way than it is in this one. And you got to look for those experiences. You've got to remember them, and that requires sometimes these dreams. Sometimes it requires holding on to them, because I see that sometimes people have these experiences. I think a lot of people have these experiences, but they dismiss them.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss them. That's my message for this.
Every experience that you have that is memorable, your brain is storing it for a purpose. Everything really does have more purpose than you want to believe.
Yes.
That's what makes this reality so, I think, frustrating for some people, because then they're forced responsibility because of that idea. The idea that everything has purpose. So what you're doing has a reaction. That's just, so if you're doing nothing, that this reality is suffering from your lack of action, because you are not fulfilling the purpose that was given to you, that you have inside of you. You just aren't accessing it, and not accessing what drives that need for work and responsibility here.
Because you're not considering how important working is. So you're looking, when you start looking in the wrong places for home, for this sensibility of like complete peace, you're going to be missing out.
And when you're saying, when we say work, we're not saying clock in, clock out kind of work. Like, me and Zach are doing work right now. We're talking about something with purpose, with a reason, because it's something we feel we need to do. It's a type of work that we're here on this planet, and we feel like it's something we should be doing, and we're doing it.
Yeah. And what ends up happening when that paradigm is embraced is you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. Everything that made sense before, like, I've got to do this job to earn this money, or I've got to do this thing to earn this security, and you sort of recognize that that there's a purpose for those things, but they're not the end all and be all.
Yeah.
That you'll have a higher purpose that you know you can draw out of yourself. Then you're just going to start pursuing that, because you're going to start getting, and we'll get into why this is the case in future episodes, but when you start seeing and feeling this contrast of realities, then you're going to stop taking things as seriously in a way, and start taking your responsibilities more seriously.
Yeah.
And you alone are going to know what those responsibilities are. And so you're going to do things that defy people's logic of how you're supposed to live your life, because your purpose is unique to you and not intimately connected with the circumstances of your life.
Yeah.
So the physics of logic, as you put it, those physics are going to change. You'll find I think for myself anyway, I think yourself too, we find ourselves doing things that we can't even explain why we're doing them.
Yeah.
And then eventually we understand them, and then eventually other people get it.
Yeah.
It's like a whole process. What it is that we're seeing is these purposes that we're being fed to, because, like, the more aware we are of this other world, the more we start tapping this inner self that has these instructions, that has this, like, natural proclivities that we have and that we need to express. When we start tapping into that world, then it just moves.
Yeah. And yeah, I wrote down the term the physics of logic, because once you start to comprehend the metaphysical aspect of reality, which is quite intangible for the most part, it makes reality more fluid instead of solid. So your logic has to be more fluid. You can't have boxed logic. You have to be able to go, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's the scientific method, but for emotions. And that's a thing that a lot of really intelligent people avoid, is a lot of intelligent people are not emotionally intelligent people. They just know a lot of stuff. But if they don't understand emotions, then they're lacking in that intelligence. So when you can apply the spiritual aspects to making your emotions logical. Even the illogical ones, at least you can digest those emotions and figure out the logic behind the actions that happened. Even if the actions that happened were nonsensical at the time and seemed completely irrational and out of character, but if you can digest what was necessary that you learned through that experience, you'll find the purpose in it again, and you'll realize, it brings you back to that anchor of, oh, that was just a really, really hard lesson, but I did get out of it, didn't I?
With a lens of purpose that you get through, like, taking on this worldview, everything starts making sense. Like, you understand that there's all this purpose waiting to bubble out, and that a lot of your emotions and the decisions you make, they are inflected by this natural urge. But I think that how and why this purpose sort of emerges and comes out, I think that's going to be the subject of the next episodes coming down the line. But I just want to stop here to really amplify one key message, which is that the purpose of pursuing this transcendence, first and foremost, is to know what the actual meaning and purpose of our lives are. Because the moment we reject the idea that this world has to be perfect, and that we're just looking for, and then or we're looking for security within this world, then everything starts flowing and everything starts making sense. But I think we're gonna end it right over here, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.
This is Vibe Check with Zach and Kris.